if I start from the beginning, I'll give you kind of a potted history to give you context as to, who I am, my experience, but also how I got into this field. So if I look back, I left school at 16, and I was an apprentice car mechanic. So finished my GCSEs, went straight out to work, wanted to earn a few quid because a
Where was
mate.
that, Alex?
That was at Shaw and Kilburn in Luton.
Right.
If you know, one of the Vauxhall dealerships when Vauxhall was big in the Luton area in Bedfordshire.
My
Um,
ex-girlfriend used to live in Luton, who I dated when I was at university, so I spent nearly every weekend there. So yeah.
yeah, I can think of better places to spend my time. I kind of lived and worked near Luton, and my wife sort of jokes. We have a joke between my wife and I because when we spent many years living in Leighton Buzzard, which is about 5 or 6 miles down the road from Luton, and there's this lovely place called Woburn that's about 5 miles away. So when people ask where do you live, she would always say, "Oh, I live near Woburn," which I always found funny. But anyway, yeah. So I hated being a car mechanic. Sitting in the bath every night scrubbing my fingernails, and it was about the age of 19. I thought I need to do something more with my life. I want to earn a few more quid. And I was looking at my dad, who was a businessman traveling the world, and I thought I want some of that. But I didn't have a good education behind me, so I couldn't follow any graduate program into business. So I decided to respond to an ad in the local paper for a Kirby vacuum cleaner salesperson. And 7 years later, after many commission-only sales jobs, retail, recruitment, I finally found my way into business sales as an account manager with one of the companies I was working with as a recruitment consultant. So I thought, yes, I finally made it into business sales, and then I realized how difficult it was to do. It took me 6 years, 7 different managers, 5 different jobs to really learn how to sell, technology and professional services. And it was around sort of 2006 where it just, a switch flipped in my mind, and I realized that I cared too much about what my customers thought about me rather than the commercial value me and my company was delivering to them. And the minute I realized that, I put so much more focus into quantifying that value and positioning that value. And then relationships turned to pipeline turned to revenue. And I had 3 or 4 years of sort of 200-300% a target, headhunted by a company to basically step up my game from the level I was at to a much bigger level. They formally trained us in challenger sales methodology and enjoyed subsequent years of high performance. Then Oracle acquired us, and by this time I'd been promoted into a manager leadership role, and had a strong mentor, and enjoyed 7 years at Oracle, setting up new teams, new divisions, and really enjoyed it when I was allowed the freedom to deliver the approach that I really wanted to deliver from everything that I had learned, partly self-taught, but also a large degree of it formally taught. In 2020, I realized I needed to get out of the corporate world. I'd already agreed an exit in the February, and in the March, COVID hit. So I like many of us, I think, enjoyed the summer that year. It was a beautiful summer. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but realized I had a lot of experience in B2B sales. So I decided to set up Sapiro and provide sales as a service to the industry in which I spent most of my time, the CX and the MarTech industry, and had a great first year. But then things started to get really hard. And I think that was the moment I realized we were in this inflection point where, for many years, buyer behavior had been changing, but it had reached the point where buyers no longer wanted to speak to sellers. They didn't get the insight that they once did from salespeople. In fact, they were burnt, often their fingers were burnt having made decisions that had backfired on them. And so they were doing all their research behind closed doors on the internet, speaking to peers, people that they trust. And that made it incredibly difficult for us to develop pipeline on behalf of our clients. So I made a decision to pivot the business from providing, sales as a service to social selling training. And it was a tough decision, but I honestly believe that the world had changed and it was no longer about how much insight you can throw at someone. It was more about being authentic, developing your personal brand, actually learning how to activate and grow your network in the right places on social media, and create content that makes you as the individual stand out and look different and be remembered, so that you encourage your audience to walk towards you. And so that's what I did. I became an expert in social selling, achieved a certification endorsed by the Institute of Sales Professionals. My two eldest sons were working with me at the time. They were on furlough from with COVID, so we were doing this together. They became experts in social selling, and but I realized there were a couple of things missing. Why weren't people adopting social selling, given that we went from, if we were lucky, 1 to 2 new business meetings a week to 10 or more business meetings per week each. It was transformational, this approach. So we looked at creating dashboards to measure the right things. I started doing research into the effects of personal change and why people found it so hard to make the changes, to put themselves out there on social media, and met this great guy called Dr. Grant Van Olbrick, who had developed the world's first personal change method. Works really well with organizational change methods. But if you're a small organization or a one-man band, there's a really simple method you can follow, which I now coach. I became a certified coach in the method. I now coach as part of the social selling training that I provide. And combining all of this learning, I've created the conversation operating system. So a way to operationalize conversation creation. And we've done a ton of stuff. We're running a 2-year benchmark study. I've created the social selling value framework to provide people with the right framework and guidance they need to follow these skills, and now developing a maturity assessment to help people see where they are and where they need to go to progress. So it's a really exciting time, I think. So yeah, that's my short intro.
What what I think would be useful is how you feel you can adapt social selling into other businesses, and maybe look at a couple of examples of founders on this group and what they could be missing out on. I'm looking for a volunteer.
Well, whilst the guys think about who they want, whether they want to volunteer, let me tell you a short story about another
Please.
founder that I'm working with. So Howard, small business owner, he runs a relatively small analytics company, predominantly professional services, but has developed his own platform. In my mind, he's a visionary, a data-driven decision maker. But he faced a critical challenge reaching decision makers in his target accounts. Traditional methods weren't working. Cold outreach, email. He wouldn't do cold calling, but he'd do networking, and you know that would bring some things, but typically that cold outreach just wouldn't work. Pipeline was shrinking, and the thought of, you know, that effort to try and putting that effort in to try and win new clients was really grinding him down, especially when he had so much other stuff to do to run, you know, to run the business, including delivery of projects. So working together, we, you know, I changed the format of the program to work around his busy schedule. You know, we would have weekly calls, which would be a mix of training, you know, me teaching him the skills, and then coaching, so helping him to apply those skills effectively based on his actual job, his role, what he was comfortable with, because not everyone's comfortable with this sort of stuff in the beginning. And the result was huge, you know, a 5,000% increase in impressions on his posts. You know, that's free impressions, because he was connecting with the right people, the people that he wanted to do business with. You know, more of the right people was seeing the real Howard, the authentic Howard. He even brought his dog into the mix, Bertie, who would often feature on walks as Howard was pondering specific, you know, business problems or customer challenges. He was able to engage with 35% more decision makers, and ultimately he boosted pipeline volume and the quality of that pipeline, and is now enjoying, you know, a series of deals that are flowing through off the back of that effort.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Neil.
I'm volunteering, Ollie. So yeah, Alex. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
did you voluntarily volunteer, or was it?
No, I did actually. I was kind of it actually aligns with something that I need to do. I work in product, service, design, massive history, and kind of, you know, looking for large corporates, you know, similar to yourself, McKinsey's and lots of others. Now I will help founders seize the idea and then help them design based on business purpose, customer experience. But this year I've also been speaking about creativity and AI, which is really, I guess, the area that I'm looking to build a reputation in. And I've built my reputation in the fact that I've gone through, or I've experienced a leading edge, a lot of the design changes, be it Web 2.0, the dot-com boom. I am that old. And, you know, but actually seeing how change and design have partnered and been beneficial. I'm just about, and you'll be pleased to know, Ollie, next week after next, Stephen Gillam's actually starting his work on me, which is cool. He's going to help me with my PR. I don't know if you know Stephen. He was a speaker on here, but he's a man with a fascinating history. But yeah, I'm just looking to build my profile. He wants to make me a voice to go to in regards to design and AI, and obviously keen to get that exposure, get on podcasts, get a decent sized following, and kind of build my design career from there.
Yeah. Well, there's I think it's, whilst you're doing this work with Steve, did you say?
Stephen, yeah.
Yeah, whilst you're doing this work with Stephen, I think it would be helpful, you know, to think about, you know, what are the commercial objectives that you want to achieve, over which milestones. So that's, you know, that's kind of the first thing. But also, I think being, you know, not being too hard on yourself. So, you know, having that ultimate goal, but then also think about the milestones on the way to achieving that goal. And I think a really helpful way to view the world, you know, to look at what you're about to do is through the social selling value framework that I've created, which simply put, you know, there's 4 value levers when I think about, you know, founders developing their personal brands. You know, one is personal brand, and within personal brand, there's that kind of static, you know, passive social profile. So what do people think or what conclusion do they come to when they visit your profile? Are they actually coming to the conclusion that you want them to, you know, which is you're a genuine, authentic guy that's worth having a chat with? You know, because nothing will happen until you start having a chat with people. That's where rapport is built and trust develops. And so, you know, there's quite a few things that you can do to improve your passive social profile so that you come across as authentically as possible. You stand out from the noise, you know, and you can be remembered for the right reasons. And so, you know, there's 30 plus things that we can work on just on your LinkedIn profile to ensure that that's happening. Then the other half, or the other side to the personal brand, is the dynamic elements, or the active personal brand. And so there are this is where two more levers come in. So one is the engagement lever and the other is the content lever. So within engagement, it's about network curation. So if you look at your 2,200 followers today, Neil, you know, and you can look at them, you can go into LinkedIn and look at all your first degree connections. Is your network full of the people that you want it to be full of, or has it just organically grown over the last, you know, 10, 15, 20 years? So, you know, it's asking yourself the question, right, what do I need to do to ensure that my network consists of the people that I want to do business with, that are going to help me achieve that goal, and start connecting with them.
Yeah.
And
no, I think it's one of the challenges I would have, because I stepped away from the corporate career, and that was actually due to a health issue. I developed epilepsy, so I had to kind of back down. That's all good now. But I guess I was a bit shy, and my network, I think I can be very proud of. There are some real heavy hitters. You know, it's your people at the top of the consultancies, partners, heads of, you know, banking networks. I mean, there is, you know, I guess I was working at that level. I connected with people through there. I've just never commercialized that. I've, you know, rarely reached out to people because I don't know, for a number of years I was probably just a bit embarrassed, you know, or kind of levels of self-consciousness about, well, what's happened to Neil. But now I think this year with the speaking, I found a new confidence, because all of that now makes sense to me.
yeah,
And that, I think I've got a level of swagger about that to be very Manc and Oasis like.
Well, I love that. You know, the fact that you can lean into that now, that's real, that's human. That's what people actually want to see, and actually stop when they're, you know, when you're in the doom scroll, corporate post, brochure, banner, all gets ignored. If someone sees you, I'm sure they're gonna, especially if they're within your network, there's a reason they've connected with you. They're going to stop and see what Neil's up to. If you're comfortable enough to talk about your epilepsy, which I see you are, because I can see it's in the featured section, then great. You know, you're already head and shoulders above the competition.
Well, I'm also running the London Marathon next year, so for the Epilepsy Society. So but that was a choice as well. You know, that was a choice saying, do you know what? I'm going to tell my story this year. I'm going to tell my story and do it through earning money, you know, for a charity, or raising money for a charity.
Yeah. And, you know, I can see you're pretty active. You know, you're posting weekly, if not more. So your audience is going to be seeing you, and it's already human posts. It's got you in it, which is fantastic. The other element of the engagement lever, you know, in addition to growing your network in the right places, is your commenting strategy. So if I click on your comments, and I can share my screen if you like, just so that everyone can see.
Feel free.
And if you could enable sharing, I'll share my screen, Ollie. Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Because it's Phil if I'm not doing everything wrong, which is good.
Yeah, look, it's great. You know, you've got a lovely banner, you've got an interesting photo, it's different, it's not just a face shot. Tagline, I would definitely consider playing with a new tagline. So, you know, the photo, the name, the pronoun, if you were to use that real estate for something else, and the tagline are almost the most valuable real estate on the profile, because that's what people see when you're posting and when you're commenting on other things. So I always encourage, you know, a tagline that's quirky, you know, that has people, you know, read it. You know, you've got about 8 words that are shown, really, if you know, when you're commenting and when you're posting first. So think about using those 8 words wisely to encourage someone when they see your photo and your name and then the tagline. It piques their curiosity, so then they want to have a look and read on. And when they have a look and read on, typically what they'll do is read your about section. So is your about section actually your personal story? Is it helping them get to know you? Or does it sound like, you know, this is what I do and this is how I help clients, which is important to be in there. But I think having the personal side to you, the more authentic side to you there is important to consider.
Hasn't been touched in a while, that description. So yeah, fair point.
Yeah. And then the comments. So, you know, in the activity section, you know, I mentioned the posts, but comments being that second piece within the engagement lever. You know, the commenting, in addition to the human posts, is the #1 activity that you can do that increases the number of profile visits you get. If you've already done that hard work on your profile, you know, to be biocentric, authentic, memorable, getting someone to your profile then does the hard work, increases the chances of getting a conversation with them. It's that commenting, that purposeful commenting, that increases the profile visits. And so, you know, thinking about, you know, of your 2,000 followers, what does the strategic network look like within your existing following? You know, if you were to place your bets for 2025, where do you think the business is going to come from? And who needs to appear in that strategic network, and who do you need to be purposefully commenting on either their posts, but not everyone posts. So it could be the posts they're engaging with, because we do know that people engage in content like you are here in the comments, but they, you know, don't necessarily post. Some people might not comment, and so, you know, they'll like stuff. So if you click through, you can actually go to reactions and see what people in your strategic network are liking. Because if they're liking stuff, Neil Linford Ralph likes this post. If I drop a like there, all 42 people are now going to get a notification that Alex Abbott has dropped a like on the same post they have. It's like a little wave from across the networking room. And then I could enter the conversation and say something, and then they see my comment, and maybe I'll read through the comments and see if there's an opportunity to insert myself into an existing conversation that's happening. Maybe drop a smart comment or an intelligent question, maybe encourage some debate. And then you really are in the minds of your audience, assuming you're purposefully commenting on your strategic network or topics that your strategic network care about.
Yeah, I mean, I've got in a week and a half, I've got, I guess, a huge opportunity where I'm actually going back to my old university and teaching for a couple of weeks intermittently. And I mean, that's a huge kind of, you know, step to be able to, you know, say that university endorsed, as it was.
Yeah, indeed. And you know, opportunity for you to take photos of yourself, maybe some recordings whilst you're there, and there's some additional content for you, some human-based content. Maybe the students, if they're up for it.
Hopefully. All right. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. And then just kind of rounding off, because I'm conscious of time, you've got your education, which is great. You've got a project here. You know, are there any more recent projects? Again, the fact that you're volunteering or you've done volunteering work speaks 1,000 words. People can relate to that. Skills. This is usually one that, you know, we've all built up these skills organically. Sometimes they just appear when we create stuff on our profile, but being mindful, you know, are those 43 skills up to date and relevant, or do they need a bit of a cleanup? You know, are you appearing as a generalist here to someone that looks at your skills? Or do you want to appear as a specialist? And so, you know, thinking about trimming that down to 10 or less if you can, and reordering them so that the most relevant ones are at the top, because they're the two that people see first. And then recommendations. Great to see that you've got recent, you know, very up-to-date recommendations. And there's a friendly face.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's given me confidence. I reached out a week or so ago, and I've been quite staggered with what people have been writing about me, which is, you know, humbling. And that's nice, but it just also given me confidence to actually, do you know what, I can actually put that to market now.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think we're just coming up with a minute left, Ollie. Shall I kind of just round things off, summarize? Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
It's been excellent. Thanks, Neil, for your question and volunteering.
Yeah, brilliant, Neil. Thank you for volunteering. It's always difficult, or it can be, to be on the spot. So thank you for stepping up. Yeah, I think, you know, what can you do from this moment forward? I think you know, step one is really to think about what you want to achieve. You know, what are the commercial goals of your business, and then really think about your personal brand in relation to helping you achieve those goals and the actions that you can take. Now, consistency is king, but also authenticity is queen in that sense. So, you know, assessing your profile. So we just did a simple kind of mini assessment live together. But, you know, I can help and do a full-on assessment. I've also developed an AI tool to auto-assess profiles and provide recommendations, you know, based on the maturity, you know, where we see you are today, and recommendations about how you can improve. It's still in its infancy, but I'd be happy, you know, for any of your community, the stand-up community, Ollie, I'd be happy to provide that as a complementary assessment for anyone.
Let's get that booked. Lee, we sort out some dates, because this has been immensely helpful.
Yeah, cool. Because then after that, you know, your community can make a choice whether or not they want to then spend some time with me, and we can then start to look at tailoring a plan for each person over time, that they can then look at and go, okay, so am I on track to achieving those goals that I need to achieve? Cool. Good.
Alex, that's been absolutely fantastic. We got any final questions for Alex this morning? I think we've exhausted that. Thanks, everyone.